A principal skill that all salespeople need to understand is understanding buyer behavior. Now, buyer behavior is a really rich and deep set of both sciences, psychology, philosophies, and all sorts of things that go on into understanding how we as humans buy services, make decisions, come about dealing with certain behaviors, how we do objections, and all these sorts of things. And lots of books are written about them. There's lots of study that you can go and do. But I'm going to give you some top tips about how to think about this when it comes to thinking about psychometric profiling. So psychometric profiling has been around since the 1850s. It sort of got itself into mainstream in the early 1900s and then proper mainstream from 1950s onwards, but it was predominantly in the realm of HR and is often used for recruitment. It's often used for understanding where talent, and I hate using that word, but that's often where it was used, to understand have I got the right candidate in the right position, etc. And it's behavior modeling. And there's lots of terminologies that you can out there. You've got the good old-fashioned one, the Myers-Briggs, you've got Insights, there's DISC, there's lots of them out there. Now, some of them are weaker than others. Some of them don't use as much robust science and psychology as others do. So make sure that if you're going into that realm and you're going to understand this stuff, you pick the right sort of model for you. But I'm going to give you a version around DISC. So DISC, go and review that if you want. And for most of you, you might be familiar with the DISC model, but I say go research it if not. Now, DISC talks about 4 colors, and it's a behavioral model, and it's talking about how we behave around certain circumstances. So DISC shows 4 colors of a personality's behavior. So color number 1 is represented in red. Often people call that dominance, but that's not how to think about it. The way to think about red color in DISC profile is how do I deal with problems and challenges when presented to me? So that part of my profile, my behavior, is how do I handle problems and challenges? Good thing to know, good thing to work out with your buyers. The yellow, often called the influence side, it is influence, and yellow talks about how I influence others around me to my point of view. So it's that whole being the great salesperson, I guess, right? How do I get people to see my point of view on something, a subject or whatever? Green, often referred to as steady, refers to our ability to adapt to pace and change. So change could be anything. As part of my organization is implementing a CRM. How am I going to adapt to the change of that CRM being brought into the business and my behavior around and towards it? And blue, often called compliance or conscientious or something like that, is about the rules and procedures, how I behave about the rules and procedures as set by others towards me. So if you think about the DISC model in those 4 themes rather than dominant, influence, steady and compliance, you'll have a better narrative and a better story and a better way of thinking about how do I tell my story, how do I get my customers to behave in a way both towards me and my company, and most importantly, what you're really trying to influence with DISC is how you encourage a client to behave internally back within their client to sell the right messages, send the right stories to their people inside the business. So red, how do we deal with problems and challenges? How do I influence people around me to my point of view? Green, all about how do I adapt to pace and change. And then blue, how I respond to rules and procedures as set by others towards me. Now, you have to read, obviously, DISC and see all the adjectives that describe what those things mean. But when you understand what DISC profiling does, where people sit on any of those spectrums, you can create more attuned and finitely adjusted conversations and stories and narratives to your clients that speak directly to their behavior, making you a far more effective communicator. Good luck.